Dear students, good morning. Last class we were discussing about constitutional isomerism. Today we start another type of isomerism, stereoisomerism. So stereoisomers are the compounds with the same molecular formula but different spatial arrangement of atoms and groups. So these are called stereoisomers. Consider butene. So this is an alkene. Butene, 4 carbon atoms totally. The position of double bond is 2. So this is butene. And one more molecule of butene. So for these two compounds, molecular formula same. Both are having 4 carbon atoms. What about hydrogen atoms? 8. So these two are alkenes. Butene with the molecular formula C4H8, but spatial arrangement is different. In this case, the methyl groups are on same side, but in the second case, methyl groups are on opposite side. Or else we can say hydrogen atoms are on same side. In the second one, hydrogen atoms are on opposite side. So these two are the compounds with the same molecular formula, but different spatial arrangement. Spatial arrangement means arrangement of atoms or groups in 3-dimensional space will be different. So these two are called stereoisomers, and the property or phenomenon is known as stereoisomerism. So in organic chemistry, we have a separate branch called stereochemistry. Okay. Stereochemistry will deal with these stereoisomers because this is very important in the field of organic synthesis. For example, if you prepare a drug, so in the synthesis of a drug, the stereochemistry is very important. One isomer will have a property and another isomer will have a different property. So due to the variation of arrangement in space, the property will be changed for the drug. So in the field of organic synthesis or in the metabolic activities, so these arrangement of atoms and molecules in space is very important. So stereochemistry is playing a major role in deciding the activity of a drug. So today we discuss about stereoisomers. So as I told yesterday, stereoisomers are of two types: conformational isomers and configurational isomers. So in the next lesson we will discuss about conformational isomers. Right? So different conformations are available for an organic compound that will be discussed later. So in this 11th lesson we have configurational isomers. Configurational isomers are of two types: geometrical isomerism and optical isomerism. First we take this geometrical isomerism. Stereoisomerism is of two types, conformational and configurational. And we take configurational isomerism, which is of two types, geometrical and optical. So first we will discuss about geometrical isomerism. Another name for geometrical isomerism is cis and trans isomerism. So geometrical isomerism is possible in alkenes. The compounds containing double bond will exhibit the geometrical isomerism. We take these two compounds having the same molecular formula C4H8, but spatial arrangement is different. So these are called cis isomer and trans isomer. So butene will exist in two isomeric forms, cis as well as trans. So the geometrical isomerism is also known as cis-trans isomerism. So this is exhibited by the alkenes, compounds with double bond. So we can explain the nature of alkene. Then only we can understand cis as well as trans isomerism. When we consider alkenes, the compound with a double bond, the carbon is sp2 hybridized carbon. we already discussed in chemical bonding lesson. In alkanes, carbon will have sp3 hybridization. In alkenes, carbon will have sp2 hybridization. Alkynes, carbon will have sp hybridization. So we can explain the bonding between the carbon atoms due to a head-on overlapping of sp2 hybridized orbitals of carbon. We get a sigma type of covalent bond. So between the carbon atoms, we have two covalent bonds. First, sigma type of covalent bond is obtained due to head-on overlapping of sp2 hybridized orbitals of both the carbon atoms. sp2 hybridized orbital of first carbon and sp2 hybridized orbital of second carbon are mutually overlapping in a linear way or head-on way. We get a sigma type of covalent bond. So totally we have 3 sp2 hybridized orbitals for each carbon. So 3 covalent bond over 3 sp2 hybridized orbital will make 3 overlapping 3 covalent bonds over. Remaining there will be unhybridized p orbital. Already we completed this chemical bonding in 10th lesson. So I repeat it. So after forming 3 covalent bonds due to 3 mutual overlapping of sp2 hybridized orbitals, one unhybridized orbital will be there. So 2pz orbital with a single electron is unhybridized on both the carbon atoms. So the unhybridized 2pz orbital of carbon with a single electron will overlap in a sidewise way. It makes this pi bond. Okay. So between the carbon atoms and alkene, we have a double bond. This double bond is mainly due to the formation of head-on overlapping of sp2 hybridized orbitals and sideways overlapping of unhybridized 2pz orbitals of carbon atoms. So we can explain the double bond formation in alkene. Single bond is due to overlapping of sp2 hybridized orbital in a linear way. Pi bond is due to the formation of the overlapping of unhybridized 2pz orbital of carbon atoms, and which is responsible for this geometrical isomerism, means this double bond, because the double bond is not rotatable easily. Okay, so the rotation is called a restricted rotation. In alkene, the double bond is having a restricted rotation. Restricted rotation means a rotation is not possible because the pi bond is making the molecule as a rigid one. So the pi bond is a rigid one, so that the carbon rotation is not possible. Okay. So geometrical isomerism is possible in alkene. This is mainly due to the restricted rotation of pi bond. So all these are one more questions. Okay. So geometrical isomers are the compounds with the same molecular formula but different spatial arrangements. This existence of isomerism is mainly due to the restricted rotation of pi bond in alkene. Why this is a restricted rotation? The bond is a stronger bond. Okay, the pi bond is making the molecule as a rigid one, so that the rotation is not possible. In cyclic compounds also, this geometrical isomerism is possible. In that case, restricted rotation of a single bond. So this is open chain compound. In alkene, pi bond is having a restricted rotation, but if you take a cyclic compounds, single bond rotation is a restricted one. So between the carbon atoms in a cyclic ring, the single bond rotation is a restricted one. So this is important. One more question. Alkene exhibits geometrical or cis-trans isomerism. Then how can we differentiate these two isomers as a cis and a trans? That's the next question. We call this as a cis isomer and this as a trans isomer. We know that both are having a different spatial arrangement, so they are isomers. Okay. How can we say this is a cis isomer, this is a trans isomer? Because if similar groups are on same side, we call them as cis isomer. When we take alkenes, if both the carbon atoms are attached with different groups, this carbon is attached with methyl and hydrogen, this carbon is attached with methyl and hydrogen. So both the carbon atoms are attached with different groups, and the groups, if they are similar and if they are in the same side, we call them as cis. So here Similar groups are on opposite side, like two methyl groups and two hydrogen atoms. They are on the opposite side. We call them as trans isomer. So two compounds with the same molecular formula but different arrangement of atoms and molecules in space will be different. So we call these two as geometrical isomers, and based on the arrangement of atoms or groups on the same side cis isomer, opposite side trans isomer. So these are called cis trans isomerism. Next one, interconversion process. How this is interconverted? Cis isomer can be converted into trans. The trans isomer can be converted into cis. So interconversion is possible. For that we have to break the pi bond. Okay, so the double bond have to be broken. Then only rotation will be free. So this is a cis isomer, cis but2ene. The double bond is rigid in nature, so rotation is restricted. It is not easy to rotate. For that we have to break this bond. So the pi bond have to be broken. A double bond should be broken. For that it needs energy. So we provide energy. So temperature can be increased or the organic molecule can absorb light. So in any way, when the energy is increased, that means when it gets more energy, the pi bond will be broken. So pi bond is broken. So we have unhybridized orbitals. So during the interconversion process, first step is increasing the energy. So when the molecule gets more energy, the pi bond is broken. Now this is a free rotation. Carbon single bond carbon in open chain can be rotated freely. So this is making free rotation. So carbon single bond carbon will make free rotation. So this is a restricted rotation, not possible. So due to the breaking of pi bond, it can be easily rotated. So due to this carbon single bond carbon rotation, we may get so carbon single bond carbon is rotated. So we have obtained this. We have unhybridized orbital with a single electron. The next step will be reformation step. So again there will be a reformation of pi bond. Due to sideways overlapping of unhybridized orbital, we will get so this is interconversion process. We have taken a cis isomer. When temperature is increased, pi bond is broken and carbon single bond carbon is rotated. And in the reformation state, that means the reformation is a cooling process. We just reduce the temperature. During cooling process, we get a trans isomer. So this is a trans but2ene. So this is one possibility. And another possibility is carbon single bond carbon cannot be rotated, means again we will get a cis isomer, right? So first possibility is obtaining the trans isomer from the cis isomer due to carbon single bond carbon rotation. If this rotation is not possible, if we are not rotating, it means during the cooling process there will be a reformation of pi bond. So again we will get cis isomer only. So cis isomer can be obtained as again cis isomer or trans isomer, right? So this is interconversion process. Next, stability of cis and trans isomers. Okay. So we have completed the bonding in alkene. What about a definition of cis as well as trans isomer? Interconversion process have completed. Next one, we have to study the stability. So this is a public 2-mark question. Okay. What about the stability of cis and trans isomers? Comparing cis isomer, trans isomer is more stable. Okay, so the question will be, why trans isomer is more stable than cis isomer? So when we take trans isomer, the similar groups or atoms are lying on the opposite side. So this is a trans butene. The two bulky groups are in opposite direction, so the interaction will be less, or the repulsion between the bulky groups will be lesser. So this will have more stability. So overall energy will be reduced. So trans isomer is more stable. If you take cis isomer, the bulky groups are on same side, so there will be repulsion between the bulky groups. We call it as steric interaction or steric hindrance, right? So if they are closing, there will be a repulsion. So steric interaction or steric hindrance will be more for cis isomer. So comparing cis isomer, trans isomer has more stability. Energy will be less, stability will be more for trans isomer. And what is the condition to exhibit cis trans isomerism means the carbon should be bonded with two different atoms or groups. Right? So both the carbon atoms in alkene, first carbon as well as second carbon should be bonded with two different atoms or groups. So consider here also we have a methyl. This will not exhibit geometrical isomerism because two same groups are on same side as well as opposite side. So this will not exhibit geometrical isomerism. So both the carbon atoms in the alkene should be bonded with two different atoms or groups. First carbon also attached with a hydrogen as well as methyl. If you take this type of compound, so this is called a propene. Will it exhibit geometrical isomerism? No. Similar atoms are on same side as well as opposite side. So this will not exhibit geometrical isomerism. Next, public question, 2 mark. Draw the geometrical isomers of 1,3-butadiene. So this is alkene, 2 double bonds present. So this is diene. Okay, 1,3-butadiene. So when we take this diene molecule, what about geometrical isomers? We have to draw cis as well as trans isomer. So 1,3-butadiene can be represented like this. So this is called a cis isomer, right? Methylene groups are on same side, hydrogen atoms are on same side. So this is called a cis. Simply we can draw cis 1,3-butadiene like this. So this is bond line structure. Okay, so this is cis isomer. Trans 1,3-butadiene means this one. This is trans. So methylene groups are on opposite side. So this is trans. So using bond line structure, we can represent like this. So these two are cis and trans isomers of the compound 1,3-butadiene. Next, geometrical isomerism exhibited by oximes. So take acetaldoxime. Acetaldoxime is CH3 . So this is called acetaldoxime. This is obtained from the acetaldehyde. So this oxime is called acetaldoxime. This will exhibit geometrical isomerism. So on nitrogen we have a lone pair of electron, right? We have a lone pair of electron. Lone pair of electron represents the electrons which are not involved in bonding. Okay. So this is cis isomer, this is trans isomer. Oxime will exhibit geometrical isomerism if hydrogen of carbon and OH group of nitrogen, hydrogen bonded with the carbon and OH group bonded with the nitrogen are on same side, means this is cis isomer. Hydrogen bonded with carbon and OH group bonded with the nitrogen are on opposite side, means this will be trans isomer. So geometrical isomerism, that means cis trans isomerism can be exhibited by oximes also. Example, acetaldehyde, acetaldoxime, cis as well as trans form. So here we will use a special word instead of cis and trans, it's called a syn as well as anti. Cis isomer is also known as syn isomer. Trans isomer is called as anti isomer, right? So 3 more questions. So with this, geometrical isomerism over, right? So in the configurational isomerism, first one geometrical isomerism we have completed. Next one, optical isomerism. If you take optical isomerism, consider an organic compound. The central atom is carbon. This is bonded with 4 different atoms or groups, right? So like this. Okay, you can consider this one, or this may be carboxylic acid also. The carbon is bonded with 4 different atoms or groups: hydrogen, alcoholic group, carboxylic acid group, then CH2OH. So in the organic compounds, if we have this type of arrangement, this will have the ability to rotate plane polarized light. So when we consider ordinary light will propagate in all directions. So when we see the propagation of ordinary light, which will be in all directions. So light will propagate in all directions. When the light is passed through a prism, which will propagate in only one direction. So this is called plane polarized light. Okay. Plane polarized light is propagating in only one direction. So when a plane polarized light is passed into this organic compound, this compound will rotate the plane polarized light in either clockwise direction or anti-clockwise direction. Okay. So we take organic compounds. The compounds which rotates plane polarized light in any one direction, they are called optical isomers. And the property is known as optical isomerism. So this is very important. 3 more question, a public question. What is optical isomerism? Organic compounds are rotating the plane polarized light in clockwise or anti-clockwise direction. We call them as optical isomers. And the phenomenon is known as optical isomerism. And this rotation is also called as optical activity. The rotation of plane polarized light by an organic compound is called what? Optical activity. When we take this compound, this is an organic compound. The central carbon is attached with 4 different atoms or groups. If we take mirror image for this, we will get this one. We take mirror image. This spatial arrangement will be different. So these two are called optical isomers. So these two are the compounds with the same molecular formula, but one will rotate plane polarized light in clockwise direction and its mirror image, another isomer, will rotate plane polarized light in anti-clockwise direction. So these two are optical isomers and the phenomenon is known as optical isomerism. And the rotation of plane polarized light by an organic compound is called optical activity. So you have to be thorough in all the 3 terms. What is optical isomer, optical isomerism, then optical activity. So when we consider the optical isomers, This isomer is rotating the plane polarized light in clockwise direction, means this is called a dextrorotatory. Simply we write it as D isomer or plus isomer. The compound rotating plane polarized light in clockwise direction is called a plus isomer or D isomer or dextrorotatory isomer, and its mirror image. So spatial arrangement is different. So when we take mirror image, arrangement of atoms and molecules in space will be different. So this will rotate plane polarized light in anti-clockwise direction. So this is called a levorotatory isomer. So simply we may express this as L isomer or minus isomer. So all these are basics. So just thorough it will be useful up to 12th standard. So dextrorotatory or D isomer or plus isomer will rotate plane polarized light in clockwise direction. Levorotatory or L isomer or minus isomer will rotate plane polarized light in anti-clockwise direction. So these two are optical isomers, and the phenomenon is known as optical isomerism. The rotation is called optical activity. Next, these two isomers are called enantiomers. Okay, two more questions. What is enantiomer? Generally, optical isomers are called enantiomers because these two are non-superimposable mirror images. So you just take this isomer, if you just keep this isomer on this perfectly, it won't align, right? Because this in this compound, D is in the left hand side, B is in the right hand side. So what about mirror image? B is in the left hand side, D is in the right hand side. Just to take the D isomer, you just keep it on L isomer. They are non-superimposable. There won't be proper aligning, right? So the optical isomers which are non-superimposable in nature, so they are called enantiomers. Enantiomerism means optical isomerism. Okay. So what are the words we have said already? Optical isomer, optical isomerism, optical activity, then enantiomers and enantiomerism. Next one, what is the condition for optical activity? Or to exhibit optical isomerism or enantiomerism, what is the necessary condition for an organic compound? The necessary condition is chirality or asymmetry. The word is chirality or asymmetry. So this is the property. That means in organic compound, if a carbon is bonded with 4 different atoms or groups, this carbon is called chiral carbon or asymmetric carbon. Symmetry means the same, asymmetry means a different. So carbon is attached with the different groups here. So this is asymmetric carbon or chiral carbon. So this property is called what? Asymmetry or chirality. So this is the necessary condition for exhibiting optical isomerism or enantiomerism. So if you take chiral molecules or asymmetric molecules, they are non-superimposable mirror images. They will rotate plane polarized light in any one particular direction. So with this, optical activity and optical isomerism is over. Next concept, deduction of elements in the organic compounds. So in the laboratory, first we will prepare organic compound. So for one particular purpose, we prepare an organic compound, then we purify. If any impurity is present, we will remove the impurities. So first step preparation, second step purification. And this is the third step. After purifying the organic compound, we have to know what are the elements present in the organic compound. So we are going to deduct the elements like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus, halogens. So all the atoms can be deducted using certain methods, right? Chemical methods. So first, a deduction of carbon and hydrogen. We know that organic compounds are hydrocarbons and their derivatives. So in all the organic compounds, carbon will be there. We don't have no organic compound without carbon. So in all the organic compounds, carbon will be there. Hydrogen almost in all organic compounds except few like carbon tetrachloride or carbon disulfide. So in few organic compounds, hydrogen is absent, but in mostly hydrogen will be present. So these two atoms are very important in organic field. So in all the organic compounds, carbon will be there. In most of the organic compounds, hydrogen will be there. Now we are going to detect carbon and hydrogen in the organic compound. So for that, we take the purified organic compound in a container. We take you have prepared organic compound in the laboratory, you have purified it using certain physical methods, you have purified. So take organic compound in a vessel or a flask. With this, add copper oxide. So we are going to add copper 2 oxide. So we have taken a mixture of organic compound and copper 2 oxide. This copper 2 oxide will be taken in a larger quantity. If 1 gram organic compound is taken, 3 gram copper 2 oxide will be taken. So thrice times copper 2 oxide will be taken in weight. Just to take the mixture in a dry condition, right? Now we are just heating it. You just heat this mixture and we have a delivery tube, and the delivery tube is dipped in a solution, right? So here we have lime water. Okay. Lime water is calcium hydroxide solution. So we are going to find the presence of carbon and hydrogen. For that, we have taken a mixture of organic compound with copper 2 oxide. We heat it. When we heat, if carbon is present in the organic compound, which will combine with oxygen of copper 2 oxide, the carbon combines with oxygen of copper 2 oxide, which will come out as carbon dioxide. Okay. So when we heat, the carbon dioxide colorless gas will come out when it is passed through the lime water. Lime water is calcium hydroxide. So when carbon dioxide gas is passing through the lime water, it turns lime water into milky. So there will be a formation of calcium carbonate. What about the reaction between these two? When carbon dioxide is passed through the calcium hydroxide, we will get calcium carbonate, so that you are observing a milky colored precipitate, right? So this is first observation. When we heat it, carbon combines with the oxygen of copper 2 oxide will come out as carbon dioxide, which turns lime water milky, which indicates carbon is present in the organic compound. Next, if hydrogen is present in the organic compound, which combines with the oxygen of copper 2 oxide, will come out as water. Right? So we collect the water molecules in a separate container. You just collect water molecules. With this, if you add anhydrous copper sulfate, first test identifying carbon based on the change in the lime water. Okay, carbon dioxide comes, it turns lime water milky. Next one, if a hydrogen is present in the organic compound, which will come out as water, the water will be settled in a container as a droplets. So with this, we add anhydrous copper sulfate. What is anhydrous? 0% water content. So it has only copper sulfate salt. There is no water content, even moisture, 0% moisture. So anhydrous copper sulfate is a colorless substance. When it is added in the container containing water droplets, there will be a color change, which represents what? The water molecule present in the container will attach with this anhydrous copper sulfate. It becomes copper sulfate pentahydrate. So copper sulfate pentahydrate color is blue. Okay. So this is the test to identify or detect carbon and hydrogen. If carbon is present, Carbon dioxide comes out, it turns lime water milky. If hydrogen is present, water molecule will come out, which turns anhydrous copper sulfate into blue color copper sulfate pentahydrate. So this is a 3 more question. With this, today's class over. Tomorrow we start deduction of other elements like nitrogen, oxygen, sulfur, phosphorus and halogens. Okay, thank you.